Stephen thought a man could never be too lucky. After his plane landed, he was able to get his luggage, meet up with his driver, and get the phone number of Patrice Fleming, the woman who had stared him down on the flight. Turns out she was in San Diego on business too, and agreed to join him for drinks at his hotel later that evening. Now, all he wanted to do was to get to the hotel, shower, and change into something more comfortable. On his way from the airport, he called his wife, Camille, to let her know he had arrived safely. He asked whether she had received the 6 dozen assorted roses he had scheduled to be delivered to the house from her favorite florist. She did, and was ecstatic over her husband's thoughtfulness. Camille was the girl of his dreams. She was smart, pretty, with a perfect caramel complexion and full of life. They met at a campus party during their freshman year. He asked her to dance, and they ended up dancing the night away. The rest is history. Stephen married her right out of college. They lived with his parents until they were able to afford a place of their own. 2 years later, they bought a 2-bedroom townhouse. If you're listening to this story, tell me where you're from in the comments. And thank you for taking your time out. I appreciate you tuning in. Stephen's father helped them with the down payment, despite protests from Mabel, who wanted them to come up with the money on their own. After purchasing their townhouse, they started graduate school to earn advanced degrees in their respective disciplines. Following graduation, they sold their townhouse and rented at Cape Cod, 50 miles away from Stephen's parents. They wouldn't build their next and final home for another 10 years. Mabel never expected their marriage would have lasted longer than a year, since they ignored her wishes and eloped. She believed Camille lacked the qualities necessary to be a good wife. Stephen was her only child, and no woman could ever live up to her standards. For a wedding gift, Mabel offered Camille weekly cooking lessons. Camille was highly offended and swore up and down that Mabel despised her. They argued for several hours after the incident as Stephen tried to convince his new bride that his mother wouldn't waste her precious time offering cooking lessons to someone she hated. He told Camille that his mother had to see something special in a person before she offered her free culinary services. Of course, Stephen wasn't being totally honest, but he had to tell Camille something to make her feel better. In their first few years of marriage, Camille was awful at cooking, and no one had the heart to tell her, except the very vocal Mabel. Surprisingly, Camille quickly learned her way around the kitchen, and over time, her cooking skills improved greatly. On occasion, Stephen would come home only to find the dinner table set with one of his favorite dishes. Camille experimented with different dishes until she found what he liked most, and he grew to love. One of them was a dish consisting of grilled salmon with peanut hoisin sauce, jasmine rice, and mixed vegetables, along with a rhubarb pineapple upside-down cake. Mabel was concerned her son would develop a peanut allergy because she never heard of anyone putting peanuts in a sauce. "There's a first time for everything," Stephen would say to his mother. Mabel didn't see it that way, but Stephen wasn't going to side with her. Camille could finally cook meals he was able to digest, and so his mother should at least be happy that he would stop losing weight. In retaliation, Mabel took out an insurance policy on Stephen just in case he died from an allergic reaction to peanuts or choked on one. Stephen loved his mother, but he loved his wife more. And although he messed around from time to time, his little escapades meant absolutely nothing. Stephen believed men wouldn't cheat if women weren't willing to play the field. He didn't feel men should have to bear all the blame either. A woman could turn down his sexual advances, and he would walk away with his manhood intact. But in Stephen's case, it was rare for a woman to turn him down. He had learned from the best, his father, and like father, like son. Later that evening, Stephen watched as Patrice's playful hazel eyes glistened under the dim lights above them. They were sitting at the bar of a luxury hotel on the waterfront in downtown San Diego. Stephen was neatly dressed in a brown suede blazer, white shirt, and blue jeans. He made sure to put on his favorite cologne, Gucci Guilty. When they were not flirting with each other, they talked about real estate investing. Stephen was impressed with Patrice. She told him that she came from humble beginnings. Her birth parents had given her up for adoption after she was born. She was on a personal mission to find them and show them what had become of her life, as she now owned several upscale clothing boutiques in New York and Los Angeles. 3 hours later, Stephen slipped his hand into Patrice's as they walked off the elevator down the hallway to his penthouse suite. Stephen fumbled with the coded keycard in the door. After several failed attempts, the green light flashed and they stepped into the room. He watched as Patrice took in the elegant 1,450 square foot room, featuring spacious seating and dining area, separate bedroom with a king-size bed, and great view overlooking the bay. The sight absolutely took her breath away. When Stephen woke up the next morning, He had a headache, the size of the Rock of Gibraltar. He slowly got up and sat on the edge of the bed. He winced as the sunlight flooded his suite from the silk drapes that had been left opened. He looked around the suite for Patrice, but there was no sign of her. To his disappointment, she had left without saying goodbye. Doubling back to the bedroom, he noticed an empty condom wrapper on the nightstand. He smiled at himself, then shook his head. He couldn't remember the events that took place after they entered the room. It may have been his ego, but he wanted to know if it was everything she had expected. He reached for his phone to call Camille, and that is when he noticed his wallet was missing. His Rolex was gone as well. Thank you for listening until the end. If this story resonated with you, leave me a comment. Tell me what you liked and what you didn't like. I want to hear how it touched you. And don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel so you never miss one of my excerpts from As Long as I Pray in the Talk to God series.